Hello everyone, welcome to My Story 100. My name is Frema and here I tell the story of others exactly how they want it told. Today I tell the story of a gentleman I call Joe. Joe went to Ghana for peace but found more than he bargained for. Please remember, all the names in this story are pseudonyms, but the stories are real. Also remember, it's only Joe's story, one side of the story. This is the story about love, betrayal, and lessons that hit harder than the December sun. I call Joe's story the Guesthouse Promise. Joe was born in England, lived and worked in London all his life. Joe was a divorcee of one child, and after his divorce, his interest in visiting Ghana peaked. Joe visited Ghana every December like clockwork. December in Ghana was like a ritual. Joe didn't go to Ghana for dirty December, but just for peace, the friendly attitude of Ghana, and to relax. Joe loved Ghana so much that he had plans of settling in Ghana one day. During Joe's travels to Ghana, Joe met a very beautiful Ghanaian lady, and I call her Mavis. Mavis was beautiful, soft-spoken, very respectful. Everything Joe had wanted in a woman. They had been going out for 4 years. Although Joe visited Ghana once a year in December, they were exclusive and had every plan of getting married and living together in England and finally retiring to Ghana one day. During all Joe's visits to Ghana, Mavis and Joe always stayed in one particular guest house, tucked in the corner of somewhere in Accra. The guest house was beautiful. It had a swimming pool, a wonderful garden where they could sit around and enjoy their company. They had been visiting this particular hotel for 4 years, that they have become friends with the owner of the guest house. And they believed the guest house owner had their best interests at heart. They even shared some of their plans with the guest house owner, and it was beautiful. During one of Joe's regular visits to Ghana, and Mavis and Joe stayed in the same guest house, they noticed the guest house had a new staff, a chef. A chef that also works sometimes as a housekeeper that helps to clean the rooms and do the beds. During their stay this particular time, Joe had become very familiar with this guest house worker, the chef / housekeeper. I'd call her Anne. Joe had become very close to Anne, and Mavis began to be a bit jealous. Their conversation appeared quite personal. They appeared to be in each other's space all the time. Mavis asked Joe if there was anything happening. Joe denied, and Mavis in turn trusted Joe. One particular time, Mavis came back to the hotel after going out to buy a few things because Joe was preparing to leave. Mavis found Joe and Anne in a very compromising position, which really broke Anne's heart. Mavis became very upset and called the guest house owner to come and help, and even to support her because she was really hurting. When the guest house owner came, Mavis noticed that the guest house owner was related to Anne. Mavis didn't feel supported. She was very hurt. She decided to pack her stuff out of the guest house the same night and left Joe. Joe was also heartbroken. Mavis was heartbroken. But the guest house owner had encouraged Joe to remain in the guest house. And after Mavis had left, they kept encouraging Joe to remain. And Joe started going out with Anne. The encouragement was immense. They spent time together. They were sharing each other's spaces, and their relationship continued. Sad enough, Joe was so happy with this new sudden relationship, he did not go after Mavis. Mavis was heartbroken. She didn't try to find Joe back. Anne and Joe's relationship blossomed. it became better. They spent few years together, where anytime Joe visited Ghana, now spends time with Anne. Eventually, Joe and Anne got married, had a beautiful wedding ceremony, including traditional marriage. When Joe came back to England after the wedding, Joe prepared everything he needed to do to have his wife, new wife, Anne, move in with him in London so they could continue their life together. They had the same plans that he had with Mavis. Mavis was forgotten, but the plans were now Anne's. Eventually, Anne secured a visa to join her husband, Joe, in England. When Anne arrived in England, after 3 weeks, Joe noticed that Anne appeared a bit different. Asked Anne if everything was okay. Anne denied. So Joe and Anne went to the GP and they found out that Anne was 3 months pregnant. She's only been in London for 3 weeks, but she is 3 months pregnant. Joe became very, very furious. And during the interrogation and investigation and communication, found out that all the time they were going out, Anne had a boyfriend. Anne remained with the boyfriend with a promise that when she comes to England, he was going to join her at some point. So the baby that Anne was carrying wasn't for Joe. Joe was heartbroken, devastated. He lost the love of his life, he claims. And he thought he was coerced in going out with Anne because Anne always had